Hello everyone, this is Victor Lang, Vice President of Enterprise Systems at SmartBridge. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We're going to talk about J.D. Edwards 9.2 revenue recognition and outbound inventory. So I'm going to start off with a quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the J.D. Edwards 9.2 features. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of that. Then we're going to go straight into outbound inventory management. Then we'll talk about revenue recognition, and hopefully we'll have some time to answer some of your questions. So to start off with, I just want to introduce you to SmartBridge. We're a full-service technology consulting firm focused on J.D. Edwards. We focus everything from the mid-market to the Fortune 500, and we want to provide a full array of services to our customers. In doing that, we're partnered with various technologies. We're partnered with Oracle Platinum Partner. We're also partnered with various business intelligence and complementary J.D. Edwards tools such as DSI, Insight Software, Security, and Canon. From a J.D. Edwards perspective, we provide the full array of services, everything from functional, technical, training, managed support. We provide all these services and implement various modules as well as upgrades for our clients. So let me get into a little bit about J.D. Edwards 9.2. It was recently released, and there's quite a few exciting features in 9.2. Internet of Things, with the tools release, you get the Internet of Things IoT orchestrator. There's been improvements to the job forecasting. You can do advanced job forecasting, do calculations and forecast on your budgets. If you have OneView, they're coming out with the OneView financial statement, so you can actually do some very nice financial reporting out of OneView. Our focus today will be on outbound inventory management and revenue recognition. Further along, we will talk about some of these other modules and other releases. Pay attention to our blog and our webinars because we'll have some new information coming out about all these areas. And for those of you who are interested in upgrading, I want to let you know that it's been reported because of the new simplified upgrade process, you reduce the amount of retrofit work that you would need to normally do by as much as 50 to 70%. So if you're not ready to upgrade, pay attention to this because it may make your upgrade much easier. And I'm just going to start off with a real quick poll just to get an idea of how many of the people here are looking to upgrade. So I'm going to see if anyone's looking to upgrade in the next quarter, next year. Try to take advantage of the simplified upgrade approach and try to take advantage of some of these nice new features. So just a quick poll. So I'm going to close the poll and see where we're at. So looks like most of you are looking to upgrade in the next year or later. There are quite a few people that are looking to upgrade this year, about 20%, or looks like some of you are ready to upgrade right now, so that's great. Good news is, as long as you are on 9.0 Update 2, you can use the simplified upgrade approach, which hopefully will save you quite a bit of time. Okay, so I'm going to go straight into outbound inventory management. And I'm going to hand this off now to my colleague, Luis Gill, and he's going to talk to you about what outbound inventory management is all about.
Thanks for joining us. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about outbound inventory management. Basically, the system for supplies is an integral part of supply chain management and order management process. Basically, outbound inventory management enables the sell-side vendor manage, which is called VMI, and consign inventory in the order to cash process. Suppliers can use with the J.D. Edwards EnterpriseOne inventory management and sales order management system to manage inventory at their customer location. Okay, some very interesting features that we have right now is that we can establish an agreement between the supplier and the buyer. You can ship consign inventory or customer inventory to any location. You can acknowledge receipts. You can report consumption. This is a very good feature because you can report the consumption and you will be able to bill any material which has been used. replenish outbound inventory. I will explain that later. Basically, what you can do is you can establish a replenishment schedule for your customers. You can also build the outbound inventory manually or automatically based on your consumptions, and review the time information and basically what is your consumption and what is what you have shipped to your customer. Or there is another good feature, which is return on use and damaged inventory. Well, this is the basic flow of the inventory process, consignment inventory process flow. Basically, it's the same. The process is the same as any other sales process. The difference is that you are able to have consigned inventory on your site or in the customer location. It depends on how you want to handle that. Basically, you start with an agreement. You have a consigned inventory. There is a consumption reporting. There are an invoicing and a replenishment. These two features, which is the invoicing and replenishment, are very important here because you can also invoice, generate an invoice before the consumption, or you can either generate just your bill of lading and do the billing and the invoicing later. Okay, this is the basic process flow of consigned inventory. If you can see, the process is the same as any other sales order, with the difference that we have a report consumption. You can report the acknowledge, report the consumption, or automatic or manual billing, and replenish all the based on consumptions or based on reorder points. That's an important feature. We will talk about later. Okay, the same thing is for vendor managed inventory process flow. As you can see, we have consignment inventory and vendor managed inventory process flow. The difference between both is that one, whenever you have a consignment, probably the inventory is not part of the customer, it's part of your inventory. And the other one is the vendor managed inventory, it's part of your customer, and you can also manage that inventory. Okay, the process flow is the same as the consigned inventory management. The difference are basically in how you want to manage the inventory and which is the owner of the inventory. But the process is very similar. Okay, the outbound inventory process, you can use this feature on direct ship orders or indirect ship orders. Basically, as you can see, this is a business process where you have your sales agent shipping your customer location. You're ready to do the consumption whenever the vendor, the customer has the inventory. He can report the consumption, and you can generate your billing considering the consumption. And you can also create replenishment. That's the basic functionality of outbound inventory, which allows you, as I mentioned, to manage inventory owned by your customer or owned by you in any location that you choose, which could be your site or a customer location site. We will go through the demo that we have prepared, and you can see this in a better way. Thank you.
Okay, let's get started. We're going to go to System G42I, Outbound Inventory Management. We're going to go through some setup that we need to add. set up Outbound Agreement Master. Then we will add a new agreement by clicking Add. I'm going to add an agreement. It could be any name or number. Demo Arrangement Agreement number 5. Branch Plan 420000. Agreement status, which you need to enter always A as inactive. Agreement type, we have different agreement types like consigned inventory management, internal owned, customer owned. For our demo, we're going to use consigned inventory management. Then you can also enter a customer purchase order. In our case will be PO 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's important to enter the customer. For our purpose, 4242, and then we're all done. We're gonna click hit here. We're gonna add an agreement supplement number 1. You can have different agreement supplements. Agreement item number 420103, ship to 4242. Outbound branch plan will be 420110011. The agreement quantity will be 100. Unit price 15. Minimum quantity 10, maximum quantity 100, target inventory 75, and reorder point 25. We need to choose a replenishment method. There are different replenishment methods like custom method. You can enter different formulas for this. 1-to-1 or reorder point. We're going to use reorder point. Okay, another important information that we can use is replenishment frequency. For our purposes will be weekly. And we're going to add this agreement by clicking OK. We need to add a default location. This location is set by default on the inventory allocations for outbound inventory. Enter. Okay, so we're done, and we have our outbound inventory agreement master. If we click find, we will see some different outbound inventory agreements. We were going to choose one of those. This is the agreement. This is the basic information. It's the same that we entered previously. If we go to form, we can see the agreement details. Now, in this case, we found item number and all the different conditions that we set up for the items. It's important that you know that we can add different expiration dates regardless of the item or the agreement. Okay? So we have set up our agreement. Once we add our agreement, we're going to process sales orders. We're going to go to Outbound Inventory Management, outbound inventory, order processing, enter sales orders. We're going to choose one customer. We have different sales orders placed to this customer. The process to follow, as I mentioned, is the same as any other sales order processing. In this case, we can, for example, print pick a slip. But first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to check the detail of this work order. But first, I'm going to check the details of this sales order. Okay, this is our sales order. I'm going to click on the row. I'm going to select the Outbound Agreement. You can set different options to get the agreement. One of the options is to have the agreement automatically, and the other is to choose the agreement manually. This is the option to choose the agreement manually. Okay, this is already set up, and this is already attached to the agreement. You see, we have an agreement that is already in place. Now, I'm going to print pick slip. Okay, so it's in process. Okay, we have the print pick slip, the status has changed, and we have our confirmation. We have a pick number, and this is the same procedure as any regular sales order. Okay, once the shipment confirmation is done, we're going to acknowledge the outbound order receipt. This is one of the features that the system provides to track inventory. Outbound inventory, outbound order processing, acknowledge outbound order. Okay, we have different features. The first one is the filter. We are able to know which order has already been acknowledged or which orders are pending to acknowledge. Well, in this case, I'm going to acknowledge these first two orders. Okay, but there's going to be a difference here. There is a feature that it's quantity on hold. Quantity on hold allows me to put on hold those orders or those quantities which have some problem during the shipment or during the receipt. For example, material damage or incorrect shipments. I'm going to add a quantity here, which is 20. It's important that you add a whole reason code. We have different whole reason codes. We're going to choose damage in shipment. Once this is done, I'm going to acknowledge. This is as simple as this. We already acknowledge our orders. And we can also put those acknowledged orders on hold. We close, and we have already acknowledged. There's something important that you need to know, that you can always track your items by location. In this case, we already acknowledge quantity available is 20 because we already acknowledged that. It's on hand. Once we acknowledge the quantity, if you remember, we place some quantities on hold. We're going to review that. This is the quantity on hold. And the quantity on hold is not put on hold on the status quo. It's put in the location on hold. The system will move the location, the item to a location which is set on hold. This has to be set before you place any item on hold or acknowledge on hold. You can always do it on any of the work order, sales orders acknowledged. For example, in this case, this order is already on hold, and we can set some different orders on hold, regardless if that is already acknowledged, just by pressing on hold. Okay, it's on, and this order has been placed on hold, even if that already it's been acknowledged. Our following process is report outbound consumption. Okay, we're gonna go to outbound inventory management, outbound inventory processing, and then we will report outbound consumption. That process is very important because it will allow us to billing. Okay, we have different options and filters here, as you can see. Outbound branch plant, ship to, customer purchase order, sold to, location, serial, or summarized by item location, summarized by item lot. Okay, in this case we're going to report consumption of item 420102. As you can see, there are 22 eaches. For customer number 727201. On location 727201 DEN US. Our agreement number, the age of the inventory, the agreement type. Okay, let's report our consumption. We're going to report 10. You can report always partials. The next one, we're going to report another 10. Okay. The primary quantity available is 22 and 15. And report consumption as simple as that. If you can see, we have a primary quantity available of 12 and 5. We have 22 and we have 15. This is as simple as this. Our next step will be generate the billing order. We're going to generate billing orders based on our consumption. And the steps are: go to order processing, generate billing order, billing, we're going to generate billing orders for our customer 727201. It's processing. Open our report, and this is our transaction quantity, secondary quantity, line number, item number. And with this we're going to generate our billing report, and will allow us to generate our invoicing. Now I'm going to talk about some additional features. If you remember, we have a quantity of one item on hold. We're going to transfer that quantity on hold on the on hold location to an available location. On outbound inventory processing, I go to transfer outbound on hold quantity. I click find. And now I'm going to move this quantity of this item to a valid location. The system will move from the hold location to an outbound location. Now I transfer the quantity, and the quantity is transferred. Now let's go to check the availability of the item and the transactions that took place. First, we're going to go to the item ledger. If you see here, there are different transactions with the document number 3157, which is the sales order, and we can see that there are different transactions. The first, from the sales order that moves to the hold in-transit location to hold locations, and then to in-transit location, and then to the final location, which is the ENUS. Once the item is in this available location, you can do the consumptions. Now we're going to go through some inquiries that outbound inventory management provides. First one is in inventory inquiries, outbound inventory availability. That will allow me to see all the different agreements by agreement number, item number, location, the agreement quantity, the quantity in transit, if there are whole quantities, and I can see as well the value of the inventory for the supplier. Then I can go to check outbound inventory change history. This will allow me to see if there are different changes on the life cycle of the agreement. Let's try to find one agreement. On the agreement 72, the agreement number 727201, I can find that there are different updates. I can find the updated user, who was the user, the time, and where were the changes, and if the agreement is still active. The expiration date, and all fields related to the agreement master. There is another important inquiry, which is one view outbound agreement inquiry. If I check the agreement inquiry, I can check all the agreements that now are, for example, inactive or canceled, active, which is the source plant, the agreement type. There is another inquiry that is also important, the inventory valuation inquiry. The inventory valuation inquiry will allow me to see which is the cost or the cost of my inventory. It's a valuation of my inventory by location, by agreement, or either by client. This is my client, and this is my valuation report. I have the unit cost, extended cost, the value of inventory for the supplier, the quantity on hand, the quantity consumed. This is very important because I will be able to see different consumed quantities. If you remember the example that we went before, we make a consumption of 10, we ship 10, and we have consumed 20, and there's still quantity on hand of 10 and 15. The age of the inventory, when was the last acknowledgement, the month of the acknowledgement, promised delivery date, the month of consumption, the agreement status. There are different agreement status. In this case, we have this has been acknowledged. You could be waiting for acknowledged or partially acknowledged. Or the consumption, which in this case is partially consumed or fully consumed. In this case, this last line is partially consumed. The replenishment method, the audit frequency, then we will take a look at the inventory consumption inquiry. Well, inventory consumption inquiry will allow me to review which is the consumption based on the consumptions that we already performed. For example, we have the quantity order, the quantity acknowledged, the delivery month, the acknowledged status as well, the quantity shipped, the consumption unique ID, and the quantity consumed. You also have filters or different filters to check by agreement, or by sold to, or by item number. In this case, for example, we have a quantity consumed of 10, 10, and 5. In different sales orders and with the same agreement. Anytime that we create a consumption, we can make a replenishment of the items based on this data. If the rules are set to 1-to-1, I will expect to have a quantity replacement of 10, 20, and 20, or either the consumed quantity. In this case, we have a unit cost as well, and we know which is the cost of the transaction.
Good overview of outbound inventory. I want to remind everyone that if you have questions, please go ahead and type them into the question window. We will try to field as many questions as we can. This is going to go probably the full hour today because we have quite a bit of content. So I'm going to quickly move on to revenue recognition and talk briefly about what this feature is all about. If you're in financials or accounting, you may already know that the FASB, the Financial Accounting Standards Board, and the IASB have determined new rules for how revenue should be recognized. And based on these new rules, there's going to be new features and functionality to track your revenue and report your revenue, especially in the accounts payable and the contract service modules. I've included a link in this slide. It's to the FASB.org revenue recognition. It gives a breakdown of this ruling and how it may impact you. And now I'm just going to hand this off to Beth, and she will go through a demonstration and review of how you can set this up so that you can take advantage of this new feature.
Today we're going to be talking about revenue recognition. Revenue recognition is the new offering with the latest of the JDE releases 9.2. The setup is accomplished through two new accounts receivable applications, P03B216 and P03B420. There are 4 different avenues through which you can recognize revenue: accounts receivable invoices, sales order invoices, contract billing, and service billing. Today we're going to be focusing on sales order invoices exclusively. There are 2 new financial AAIs that need to be set up and 1 new distribution manufacturing AAI to comply with the FASB and IASB regulations. P03B216 allows you to define which of the companies will be using revenue recognition. You can disable all companies, you can enable all companies, or you can tell the system you wish to enable or disable by company. Here is a picture of P03B216. If you can see it, it's mighty small. The top portion is set up for company all zeros, the default company. Then you tell it whether or not you wish to disable all of them, enable all of them, or choose by company. We chose to do it by company. So then when the next screen, you're prompted for the company number, and then whether or not you wish to enable or disable for this particular company. P03B420 further defines how the revenue recognition will be applied. There's a hierarchy of fields to be examined, the date comparisons, and the configuration. Each application that we spoke about, accounts receivable, sales order invoices, contract billing, and service billing, have their own distinct and different hierarchy, dates, and configuration. Here is a picture of P03B420. When you first come in, it will display all of the companies. And as you can see, we have said that we wish to recognize revenue using the new applications for Company 1. And we have shown that we are going to enable that. Once we click on that row and then use our row menu, we can say we want to do the sales order setup. As you can see, we've got the sales order hierarchy, the date setup, and then the configuration setup. We're going to go through each of those screens. Here is the hierarchy for the sales order triggers. You must number these fields sequentially. You cannot skip numbers, but you can leave fields blank. As you can see, I've chosen first to look at the ship to number, then the carrier, and then the mode of transport. After that, I'm going to look at the shipped to category code 1. I want to emphasize here that these category codes come from the customer master, not the address book. There's kind of a got you if you're using demo data like I was, in that the ones that you see in the address book do not match the ones that are in the customer master. So I hope I will save you some time when I tell you check the customer master category codes, because those are the ones that you're going to be using. This is the date comparison screen. Here we tell by company how we want to calculate the from date. And as you can see, I put the definitions of each of the dates down here so that you can see them. This is the calculation from date. If I put a 1 in there, it's going to look at the ship date as the beginning date of my calculation of days, as I will show you later on in the configuration. Here is my period comparison date. And again, I have the definition down here for you to see, and I have chosen GL date, ship date and GL date, which means that in the number of days that I have defined in my configuration, which I think is 5 if I remember correctly, it's going to look at the ship date to see whether or not it falls within 5 days of the GL date in the transaction. More on that later. This is P03B420's configuration screen. This is where we define the values that we wish our triggers to look for in order to include it in the revenue recognition application. You can see that I have rearranged my grid and excluded fields from the grid so that I see only those fields that I have defined as triggers and in the order in which I defined them. I have my ship to number, then my carrier, mode of transport, category code, etc. Here is where I tell the system that the dates I defined, the ship date and the GL date, are to be used to calculate whether or not the transaction falls within those number of days, and is it in the same period? I want to be sure that both sides of my transaction, the invoice recording and the revenue recognition, are in the same period. And with 5 days, I'm probably pretty safe that that's going to happen. That's why I have defined this, that it only happens with this particular carrier, FedEx, and expedited. So the customer should have received the goods within the 5 days I've defined. You can see that below here I have transport by sea, COD. I've given it 60 days, but I also said I couldn't have it in the same period. Or I shipped it by rail, and again I've given it 15 days, but my chances of having it fall within the same period are still less than the expedited shipping within 5 days. Now I will tell you that we set up 2 separate query by example grids that we used for 2 different companies. I defined company 1 and I could define company 200. So one grid I named company 100 and one grid I named company 200, so that I could have both of the grids in the order in which I needed them, even though they may be different between the 2 companies. Now let's talk about the 2 new financial AIs, RP and RQ. RP, they have an example for you to copy. It's for company 00000, and it's at sequence 3.550. And it tells you to please use that same sequence number when you define yours, if you are going to define yours company specific, which I did. You can also use the suffix, just like in the other financial AIs. So I put the GL class code from the customer master as the suffix of my RP AAI. Business units are optional, and I will show you where you can define the business unit that you want the system to use when you leave the business unit blank. RQ is the other new one, sequence number 3.551. Again, you can use the suffix from the customer master, and the business unit is optional. Here's a picture of RP financial AAI that I set up. You can see that I did not mention a business unit in any of these. Here's RQ. Again, I defined one for RQ blank and one for RQ base, just like I did for RP, and I left my business unit blank. The new distribution manufacturing AAI is 4225. Again, your business unit is optional, and the processing options in R42800 allow the business unit usage designation. And the processing options in R42800, the sales order update, allow the business unit usage designation. This is a picture of 4225. I defined one for all other category codes, but in particular the 2 items that I was using had IN30 as the GL class code in the item branch plant record. Here are the processing options for R42800, the sales order update, as I had said. And this option number 5 on the defaults tab is where you tell it what general ledger business unit you want it to use to build the account number to record the revenue recognition entries. Blank and option number 3 are the same. It will use the revenue business unit for the transactions that it's creating if that's what you wish. Option number 1 uses the business unit that's in the detailed transaction line. And option number 2 uses the address book number as the business unit number in the transaction. Here's the invoice batch that was created when I ran R42800, the sales order update. This is the invoice line, and these are the GL distribution entries that you can see in this batch. However, I don't know if you'll notice or not, but these are not my revenue recognition entry lines. Those cannot be seen in this batch. However, they do exist. This is report R42800, the sales order update report. And again, you will not see the revenue recognition entries here in this report. However, if we go look at the batch using some of the new programs for revenue recognition in the accounts receivable module, we'll see 2 different ways that you can recognize revenue and get a very much better picture of the general ledger distribution for this batch. There's 2 ways to recognize revenue: guided and unguided. Guided uses P03B116, the revenue recognition workbench. This is a picture of that screen, and it's a little busy, as you can see, because I wanted to show you several different things in the interest of time. Obviously, we can look for the invoice details. It looks just like the invoice portion of your batch. We have a revenue recognition status here that I've given you the definition for down here. However, if we look at the GL distribution, it gives a much better picture of the entries that will be recorded in the general ledger detail as a part of this batch. You can see your performance liability account here, 1.4041, and your cost of goods sold performance liability account down here, 1.4042. I'm also going to just kind of skip through the processing options for P03B116 because we wanted to keep this to 20 minutes because there's another portion of this presentation, the outbound inventory. So here's the processing options for P03B116. I do want to interject a word of caution. If you have your sales orders updates set to summarize, you will not be able to use revenue recognition. However, on a happier note, in P03B116, your revenue recognition workbench, you are able to void unposted transactions, and you are able to remove transactions from revenue recognition if the revenue recognition portion has not been completed. If you're like me, that came up through the techie ranks, I like to see what's under the covers. These are 3 tables that are used in the revenue recognition workbench: F03B11T, F03B116, and F03B117. There's also F03B118 and F03B119 that provide audit trails for you of what happened to your revenue recognition, but they are not populated until after the revenue is recognized. The unguided method for revenue recognition is R03B116, and here's the processing options for that.
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate the review of revenue recognition. So we're close to wrapping up here. I want to actually do one final poll and see what people think of the features that we've reviewed today. See if anyone has interest in terms of the business case for upgrading to 9.2. Great. So there's quite a few responses here. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And it looks like the majority of you are interested in staying code current, which is a very good thing to do. You definitely want to be current and make sure you're able to take care of your maintenance and all of the concerns related to that. In addition, many of you are also interested in the new features. So those are both very important things. The new tools release is also an excellent set of capabilities. There's enhanced security, Internet of Things Orchestrator, as well as the E1 Page Composer. If you're interested in more details about some of the latest things coming up, you can see them on our webpage. We actually have a blog post. I recently attended JD Summit, and I've got some updates around one of the current features in 9.2, as well as things that are being planned by Oracle. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the poll here and go ahead and allow for some Q&A if anyone has any questions. We're up to close to being at the hour, so I have just a couple minutes left for questions. And also, I just wanted to remind everyone that we will be at Collaborate this year. Please visit us at our booth, and we'll be conducting a couple of sessions. So please join us for our sessions. So I'm looking through the questions and see a good question here regarding the licensing for these new features. Wanted to let you know that there is licensing required, so depending on what you do. Revenue recognition, if you already own the financial management module, which is AR, AP, you already have the ability to use revenue recognition. You do need to configure it. If you want to use it in, with contract service billing, you will need to have also license for contract service billing as well. So in any OneView reporting related capability will require you to have licensing for OneView reporting. With Outbound Inventory Management, that is a new module, and you do need to have licensing for that. In addition, if you want the OneView reporting related functionality with Outbound Inventory Management, you will also need to have licensing for that OneView piece of it. So there are some licensing requirements depending on what you would like to use. So that's a very good question. Let's see here. Looks like some people are interested in more information or more details. If you wanted to actually have a more tailored or detailed demo, we can do that. We can contact me. We can arrange for a personalized demo of any of these modules with you. If you are interested in understanding what the upgrade to 9.2 would look like, especially considering there's the simplified upgrade process, we actually are offering free workshops. It's just really normally anywhere from a half day to 1 day, depending on how much you want to cover. But we can give you a workshop, covers all the stuff that would entail in terms of an upgrade, and talks about the many benefits and features and how to build a business case to upgrade. So just let us know, and we'll be more than happy to schedule that with you. I want to thank everyone for attending. Pay attention to our webpage. We do have upcoming additional webinars on mobility and other great features with JD Edwards. Thank you very much.